The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Monday, 7th of March, 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,265.40 an ounce, silver $15.62 an ounce, Texas crude $35.92 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 416 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1530, King Henry VIII's request for divorce to Catherine of Aragon is denied by Pope Clement VII. This led to King Henry claiming the title of the supreme head of the Church of England. The Anglican Church had its schism from Rome. Today in history. In recent news, Kyle Andrew Odom, a 30-year-old ex-Marine, is still on the run as of today for the suspected shooting of Idaho minister Tim Remington 6 times right outside of his church yesterday, the Altar Church, where he's a senior pastor. Odom is considered armed and dangerous by police and is believed to be driving a 2004 silver Honda Accord. Luckily, Pastor Remington was upgraded to fair condition today at the Kootenai Health and Medical Center. Though the motive is unknown as of yet, the shooting came a day after Remington delivered an invocation at a rally for Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz. Odom was a flight technician for the Marine Corps from 2006 to 2010 at Camp Pendleton in California. He was awarded an Iraq Campaign Medal with 1 star, according to publicly available documents. A new species of octopus was discovered during a search of the ocean floor by a remotely operated vehicle from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Okeanos Explorer. On February 27th of this year, a team of scientists found a small light-colored ghost-like octopus at a depth of about 2.5 miles by Nucker Island near the Hawaiian Islands. Several scientists agree that this is something unusual and is a depth record for an octopus without fins. Genovation Cars in Rockville, Maryland is now certified by the International Mile Racing Association as constructing the world's fastest street-legal electric car. The all-electric prototype Chevy Corvette, dubbed the Genovation Extreme Electric, or the GX-EAS, hit a record-breaking 186.8 miles per hour. The previous record was set at 177 by a Finnish prototype car. The GXE is based on a 2006 Z06 Corvette, which includes a state-of-the-art battery management system, inverters, batteries, and an electric motor that delivers over 700 horsepower and 600 foot-pounds of torque. The car has a range of 130 miles during normal driving operation on a fully charged battery. This was your lowdown for March 7, 2016.
Welcome, everyone. This is Agenda 21 Talk. I'm Don. I talked to Shannon before the show, and he was just too tired to be on. He works much longer hours. He doesn't get home as early as he used to. So it makes it hard for him to do the show, but maybe he'll be on next week. I don't know. Who knows? But he's going through a lot these days. So this is March the 8th, 2016. We are streaming on logosradionetwork.com. If you go to that site, it's a good site. It's got a chip-in button. We want you to donate if you enjoy the programs and the different shows that are on this network. Donate some. They're not asking for much. It's only asking for like $10,000, and geez, it's about a third of the way there. So that's not hardly anything to keep the radio on the air, the Truth Network, you might say, on the air. So we've been on for 5 years, 6 years? It doesn't seem like it. And it's just it goes by so fast. So anyway, 2009. We started about January 2009. It doesn't seem like it. It's been that long. Don't know what we've done. We've come through a lot of change. And you know why I do this show? You know why Shannon and I do it? Shannon's the same way. We want to give back. We were all helped by people, and it wouldn't be right for us to take all this information plus all the stuff that we've learned in our studies and not kind of give it back to people. But, some people, it's nice you're listening. We'll certainly enjoy your company. We'd like you to call in 512-646-1984. But, people can listen and it's, don't throw names around. Maybe I shouldn't say stuff, but Don Casey has given, he hadn't said this to, I don't know. I'm just thinking, but Don Casey has given these talks for years now. Anybody that'll listen, he came to our church once, and people will listen to him. They'll listen to this show. They'll listen to Eddie Craig, but you won't actually do anything. When the time comes to actually do something, you won't do it. We had a friend who was trying to get a petition signed in Alabama on this. I think it was on, was it on the marriage thing that Alabama's going through? And I was going to talk about that just briefly. And he had all these people, oh, yeah, we'll sign your petition. We'll do this. We'll do that. And when push comes to shove, it's actually time to sign something. Well, they have something else they have to do. And I don't know if that's really the thing they want to do. They'll agree with you. This guy thought he was going to have hundreds of people sign this thing. And push comes to shove, he's hardly got a dozen people to sign it. So it's just, I guess it's human nature. I don't know. Well, we enjoy you listening. We just hope you get motivated and become a doer and not just a listener. And that's actually from the Bible. You should be a doer of the word and not just a partaker, a listener of the word. So anyway, we hope it gets you excited and want to do things. But we want to hear from you. Calling number is 512-646-1984. I'd like to hear you. I've been saying this, what direction you want the show to go. You know, I was thinking here the past several months, 6 months, I've been doing a lot of reading the news, current events. And I was thinking, I'm laughing, I've become Rush Limbaugh, because that's all some of those talk shows like Rush do. All they do is talk about the news. And people call in, oh, yeah, so-and-so, Romney this, and Donald Trump that, and Obama that's something else. And so they just talk about the news a lot. I've kind of become that, but I've been trying to do it, as I've said. Hopefully I've been trying to show where we are in the stream of time, the biblical stream of time, where we are. Because you need to know. I need to know. And any information I get, I pass it on. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And we've got some legal stuff now. That's another thing is that we've been talking about legal stuff now since 2009. Boy, it doesn't seem like it. I guess that's 7 years. This is 2016. Wow. Sure doesn't seem like it. Anyway, we've gone through a lot in evolution in this show. We've learned how to do, I knew how to do a bunch of legal stuff, but learned even more, learned how to do some foreclosures. We learned what's actually going on. We learned that you can have success, but it has to be the person doing it has to actually learn stuff so that when they go into court, they can actually speak stuff. There's no magic paperwork. You can file all the paperwork you want, but it has to come out of your mouth. And the people that could not do that lost, and the people that could do that had some success. So in any endeavor, in whatever court, it's criminal, civil, whatever, you have to be able to speak it. So you have to know it. So you have to study it. You have to own it. You have to be able to recite it. If somebody wakes you up at 3 a.m, you have to be able to recite it, to say it. So a lot of people don't want to go that far. They just want somebody to do it for them. They want a Superman to come take their case away and win it for them, and they'll pay them some money. And it doesn't work like that. You have to do it yourself. We can help you. We can teach you. We can train you. You can have study groups. You can do mock courts to help. All of that's great and wonderful, and it will help. But you have to be able to do it yourself. So anyway, that's part of it too. So this is Agenda 21 talk. So we've talked about Agenda 21. That's the United Nations program that has to do with land and land rights and a number of other things, passing laws, junk ordinances all over the nation, passing laws to try to reduce your property rights, to give the government more rights to property. So eventually you have no rights to property and the government has it all, which is, I think, communism. One of the planks of the Communist Manifesto is that the government owns all the land. So we've talked about that. Well, Agenda 21 goes beyond that. It's not just the United Nations program. The self-anointed elite, as I call them, they have the bankers, the people that the bankers bow down to and worship, and all that upper echelon crust of the super wealthy anointed stuff people. They have their agenda that they're trying to get out, and that's their agenda for the 21st century, and it includes the current what's happening now. It includes this Muslim invasion that is going through Europe, and you don't hear many of the headlines, but boy, they're still having trouble with Muslim men attacking German women and women in other countries. And they even stabbed a guy who tried to defend his wife from, well, he wasn't stabbed, he was beat up, but the other people have been attacked. An American was killed in Tel Aviv, I think just today, from a Muslim who went on a rampage. But anyway, that's all part of the plan. And I'm going to read a story about the Hollywood people telling Obama to let more immigrants in. And that's their agenda, is to get the Muslim population and Sharia law going, to stir up trouble between them and the Protestantism, which is going to end next year anyway. Protestantism is. And anyway, so you can have all this tension, this violence, this wars and rumors of wars, so that the beast will make peace between the two. And the Bible says when they say peace, peace, then the end will come. And that will happen. I don't know when that will happen, but the tension between Muslims and non-Muslims is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse until the one world ruler will say that he's made peace between the two. And he's making peace between all the religions right now, all except two great classes of religions, those that worship on Sunday and those that worship on the Sabbath. It's happening now. It's going to happen in the future. Anyway, that's their agenda for the 21st century, so I'm trying to report on that and keep in line with the namesake of this show, Agenda 21, Agenda for the 21st century. There are two agendas. One is of Satan and one is of God. And I'm trying to present both of those. So when we talk about the Bible, we're presenting God's agenda for the 21st century, and Jesus is coming back soon. A lot of people know that. Talked to this guy who was holding up a sign in Scottsboro, Alabama, saying the end will come, and the end is near. Jesus is coming soon. I forgot exactly what it says. So I stopped and asked him, why do you think, I'm not criticizing you. I agree he's coming soon, but why do you think? What signs do you see that Jesus is coming back? And he really couldn't give me any. It's kind of amazing, except the only thing he specifically said is, well, the religions seem to be all conglomerating together. They seem to be coming together. And he doesn't know why, but that doesn't seem right. You know, we talk about there's 30,000 different denominations in the world, maybe more than that. And that doesn't seem right. Yet it doesn't seem right that they should all be one either. Yet we know they all should be one. We all should be one in Christ, one in Jesus. We should agree in truth and not in error. We should agree in biblical truth. But the Bible says all the world wanders after the beast. And in Revelation, chapters 12 and 13, it talks about worship the beast. So the way you worship, who you worship, the way you worship, the style of worship, apparently is very important to these people, to God, because he put it there. And it's important because he's telling us what people are going to do with this beast. So worship is going to have a very important part in these end times. So, yeah, it was interesting. People know all over, a lot of people know we're in the end times. They don't know why. They don't know how soon. They don't know about the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation, but they know we're in the end times. They can't always debate it. They don't know. They just know something's going on. They don't know what. It's kind of like the Matrix. You know the Matrix there, but you don't know what it is anyway. Yeah. But so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to read some more headlines and talk about some of what the self-anointed elite is doing to us in these end times, and some really interesting stuff, I think. Talk about the Bible too, because I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't on last week because I was sick. So about 3 weeks ago, I talked about the Jews, and I read something. I'd just done a little research on the Bible about what the state of the Jews, whether they're something in the end times or not, whether they've been cut off, or whether they're still God's chosen people, whether or not the people in Israel today are from the Khazars, or whether they're from the children of Israel. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So anyway, I had a comment. Somebody responded to that. So I was going to read kind of the response. And, going to do that after the break. I guess we'll do that first, and then I'll read some these news stories we got. It's just coming one after the other. I mean, it's just amazing. Would never have thought these things would happen in my lifetime at all. With this country, I mean, they have Donald Trump as president. Who knows? Some elections are going on tonight in a couple of states. And then next week, I think Florida is going to have an election, a primary. So we may have Donald Trump, or we'll have Hillary. Of course, she may serve their presidency from jail, but she may be president. All right, this is Agenda 21 Talk. Calling number. Would love to hear from you. It's May the 8th. So it's May the 8th for you, or call us 512-646-1984.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this March the 8th, 2016. Call-in number 512-646-1984. Our email is agenda21talk@yahoo.com. The 2 and the 1 are numbers. So it's agenda21talk@yahoo.com. All right. So several weeks ago, I read just a little bit of Bible research I'd done on the state of the children of Israel. And my favorite, when Jesus, just to set the stage here, Jesus meets a centurion who, to paraphrase what the centurion says, you don't need to come. He says, my servant is sick. Could you heal him? And Jesus said, all right, let's go. And he said, no, wait a minute. Hold the phone. You don't need to come to my house to heal my servant. Just say the words and he'll be healed. When Jesus heard it, and he goes on and says, I'm an officer, I'm a soldier. I tell people to go here and they go and do this and they do it. All you have to do is say the word and my servant will be healed. So Jesus, this is Matthew 8:10. When Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to them that followed, verily I say unto you, I have not found so great a faith. No, not in Israel. And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and the west and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. Verse 12, but the children of the kingdom shall be cast into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Who are the children of the kingdom? He just mentioned Israel. And they usually go by the name children of Israel because Israel was the name of Jacob after he had his name changed. From Jacob, meaning the usurper, supplanter. Jacob is a deceiver. And he had it changed to Israel. So the children of Israel were his 12 sons, and he had a bunch of daughters too. And so they became known as the children of Israel from the 12 tribes. So Jesus just called them the children of the kingdom. And there should be cast into outer darkness. What does that mean? There should be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's pretty obvious he means they're going to be cut off after the 70 weeks. They get half a week of having Jesus preach to them. They get half a week after he's crucified. He's cut off in midweek, according to Daniel. And then after the 70th week, if they haven't accepted him as their Savior, as the Messiah, they're going to be cut off. They'll be cast into outer darkness. They'll have to come to Jesus. As a nation, they will be. Individually, they can still come to Jesus, as the 12 disciples were all Jewish. They have to come through Jesus. So anyway, that's the state of the Jews. That's just one. So that's the setup. So I got a response. And this person, who shall remain nameless to protect the innocent, has quoted somebody, a J. Vernon McGee, who wrote a book that I don't even know the name of it. This is volume 1, page 602. And he's quoting Deuteronomy 30:10, which I quoted in my thing because it's when you take the whole Bible in total, it says a message that you may not get if you just read part of it and stop reading. You have to continue to read the entire Bible and search all the texts that relate to this, whatever subject it is you're talking about. So this McGee here, he's quoting Deuteronomy 30, and he's going to, he says 30:10, but he started quoting Deuteronomy 30, verses 1 and 2. And this is what he says. Does this mean that since Israel failed to keep the covenant, they will not go back to the land? No, he says. God made the Palestinian covenant with these people unconditionally. We shall see that in the next chapter. In chapter 30, the theme is the Palestinian covenant. McGee says, we now come to the Palestinian covenant which God made with Israel. Read it carefully. You will notice there are no ifs in this covenant. It is an unconditional promise of future blessing. Let's see if that's true. Then he quotes in bold Deuteronomy 31 and 2. And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, thou shalt call them to mind among the nations whither the Lord God hath driven thee, and shalt return into the land of God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day. You and your children with all your heart and with all your soul. So he just said, anybody can say anything. What do you think? He says, read it carefully, there are no ifs. And it's the very first thing he quotes. It says there's a blessing and a curse. Well, that's an if. That's a big old if. That's an if you can drive a 747 through. It shall come to pass when all these things come upon thee, the blessing and the curse. That's the if. The if is if you do the 10 Commandments, if you follow me with all your heart, if you are my people and I'm your God, then you will have the land, possess the land, and you'll have all these things. But if you don't do that, if you worship idols and you don't keep the Sabbath, then you have the curse fall upon you. Not that I'm a bad God, I'm going to curse you, I'm going to thump you because you didn't do what I said. But if you don't do what I said, you're sinning. You're committing sin, and that sin will bring you down. It will cause you problems. I don't want those problems for you. I'm not doing it to you. Your sins are doing it to you. But I, your God, don't want that to happen to you. So I'm telling you what to do so you won't be cursed by your own sins. If you do what I say, you won't be sinning. I'm paraphrasing all this. So anyway, so this guy said there are no ifs in the covenant, but he read a big old if right there. A blessing and a curse. It just did away with everything. He said, you can just not bother reading the other 600 pages and other volumes of his work, because he just said one thing and then quotes the Bible, which says the exact opposite of what he's saying. And he goes on to say, I don't know. I just said it. You don't really have to, but I'm just going to read this one thing. There are 7 great promises which God makes here. He makes 6 statements which are unconditional. Well, that's not true. He wouldn't put a curse on it if it was unconditional. Verse 1 tells that they will be dispersed among all the nations. The nation will be plucked off the land for its unfaithfulness. This has taken place. That has taken place. I don't know what he means by that. Would it take place back then, or is it taking place now? It obviously took place after the 70 weeks mentioned in Daniel. There was you expect, like I expected after we passed the law here, making homosexuality legal, doing away with one of the tenets that God says it's an abomination, that something would happen. We've had earthquakes and stuff, but we had earthquakes before. No, there's usually a waiting period. So after the 70 weeks of Daniel, when Stephen was stoned, at the end of the 70 weeks, there was a waiting period. That was around 33 AD, and it took until 70 AD, another 30 years, roughly given, give or take, 27 years, for Jerusalem to be taken or destroyed by the Roman army in 70 AD. 3.5 years before, they were surrounded, and then the Romans' army left because they had something better to do, and then they came back. And that was that pause there that Jesus was speaking about, telling people when you see Jerusalem surrounded, you need to leave. Of course, how can you leave when it's surrounded? Well, they surrounded it, then they left, and then they came back. And so all the Christians left at that time. So in 70 AD, it took 70 AD before that prophecy was fulfilled, and they were scattered, and that was the end of that. So they're not going to be coming back. That was it. They had their shot, and so the curse happened, and then they have to go through Jesus now. So anyway, that's the one response I got. I thought it was really interesting. It didn't even take a lot of mental gymnastics to figure that one out. The guy tells you right off the bat one thing and then quotes the Bible that just throws away his old argument. So anyway, so you don't really have to. When that happens, I just stop reading, because if that's wrong, what else can be wrong? I mean, they may have some good points there later, but why would I want to sit through a bunch of false information, that I know false, just to try to find something that may be good and true? Somebody else can do it, but I'm just not going to waste my time. So I hate to be really harsh, but if the guy's going to say one thing and immediately quote something that refutes his argument, I'm just going to stop right there and say, this guy I don't think he knows what he's talking about. I just stick with the Bible. Stick with the Bible. It'll read all the verses talking about the children of Israel and the curse and the blessings and the prophecy of Daniel and what Jesus actually said, and his prophecy Jesus talked about in Matthew 24 when he's talked about the end times. All right, well, coming up on a break, this is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number, 512-646-1984. It's Tuesday, March the 8th, 2016. So call in, please, with your comments or questions, 512-646.
Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Oh, yeah. Out-of-this-world vacations may soon become a reality, and space entrepreneurs are taking reservations. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll tell you more in just a moment.
Your search engine is watching you, recording all your searches and creating a massive database of your personal information. That's creepy, but it doesn't have to be that way. Startpage.com is the world's most private search engine. Startpage doesn't store your IP address, make a record of your searches, or use tracking cookies, and they're third-party certified. If you don't like Big Brother spying on you, start over with Startpage. Great search results and total privacy. Startpage.com, the world's most private search engine.
Would you like to spend your next vacation in space? That day may be coming. 8 private spaceship airports or spaceports have already been built, and test flights are underway. Companies like Space Adventures and Virgin Galactic are pre-selling seats for space cruises designed for the regular public. Forget the $40 million price tag the Russians have been asking for rides to the space station. Suborbital cruises start at just $102,000. Take out a second mortgage, and you could be on your way. Promoters expect that space travel will eventually become routine, and prices should drop even further. Me? I love adventure, and I love a bargain. I'll send you a postcard from space. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
Looking for some truth? You found it. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Seems like yesterday, it was long ago.
Hello, everyone, again. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this March the 8th, 2016. Call-in number 512-646-1984, and Amy has called in, so let's go straight to Amy. Hello, Amy. How you doing this evening?
Hi, Don. I'm fine. I wanted to ask you, what were you reading from that was talking about all the curses? Was that the Old Testament?
It's the Old Testament, Deuteronomy. Moses is talking to the children of Israel before they go across to the Promised Land. And Deuteronomy is basically one big sermon. It must have gone on for hours.
Those curses, right? So really, as a whole, throughout the whole Old Testament, they knew nothing of Jesus Christ, and the whole Old Testament and all their experience they have was to bring them up to the understanding of Jesus Christ and his sacrifice and what he did to save us, correct?
Yes, Moses didn't use him by name, but he prophesied of a prophet to come. And, of course, Abraham talked to God, and the sacrifice Abraham was going to do with Isaac was a mimicking Jesus, showing So anyway, all the sacrifices pointed to the Messiah. So yes, they were practicing for the Messiah.
Okay. So the whole purpose of or the whole story of the Old Testament is to bring people to the understanding of Jesus Christ and for their salvation. Well, I don't understand why we would keep going. And I'm just going to ask you this, and I'm going to get off and listen to what you have to say. I don't understand why we would keep saying this, because it applies to the Old Testament when people didn't know Jesus and they were so lost and they weren't saved yet. And then when Jesus comes, why would we still have the curses and all that?
Okay.
In the New Testament. And now, if that was for the Old Testament, it was a whole different time and era. But I'm going to go and let you and listen to you answer that.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Thanks for calling in, Amy.
All right. Bye.
Goodbye. All right. So there's my answer. The way I read the Bible and understand it was let the Bible say itself. I believe that the curse specifically, a lot of bad things happened to the children of Israel. I mean, they were captured a couple of times. They're captured by Babylon. Daniel was in captivity. That could be a curse. But and of course after that. But I believe the big curse, the curse he's really talking about, is when the children of Israel lost their status as God's chosen people at the end of the 70-week period prophesied in Daniel after Jesus. So you could say that it was actually in New Testament times that the curse hit the children of Israel, because in 70 AD, 30 years after Jesus was crucified, roughly give or take, then Jerusalem was sacked and destroyed, utterly destroyed. The temple was destroyed by the Romans. And that, I believe, was the curse. And they were then scattered, horribly scattered. And that was really the end of the nation of Israel at that time. So that was when the curse really hit. That was it. That was the big curse, as I read the Bible. Nothing more is mentioned after that. And so, not that we're under the curse, we're under a curse of sin because we keep sinning, but we do have Jesus to atone for our sins so that we can stand spotless before the judgment. And that's why we preach Jesus and him crucified and risen. Paul says Jesus and him crucified. Well, that's important. That's good. That's true. But he's risen again, as Paul says before in other places. I mean, people get on that as sort of a soundbite. Preach Jesus and him crucified. Well, we preach Jesus, him crucified, and his risen. And without him being risen, Paul says too, that you really have nothing. You don't have faith. You don't have anything if he hadn't risen from the dead. Anybody can be killed. It's the coming back from the dead, overcoming death, being the firstborn of the victory over death. That's the really important thing. So we preach Jesus, him crucified, and his victory over death, the resurrection. We don't talk about that curse anymore because that's over and done with. And the Gentiles then took the word of God, the good news, the gospel, and spread it to the entire world, which is what the children of Israel were supposed to have done. So anyway, but the Gentiles are not God's chosen people. That's over with. So that's my soapbox, I guess. That's my 2 cents worth. That's what the Bible says. Thus saith the Lord. So I hope that answers your question, Amy. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate it. It's really nice to hear from you. So here's where we are today. We're in a mess. Is the world getting better? Are we getting more righteous or more wicked? Are things getting better or getting worse? Are we moving towards God or away from God? If we're moving away from God, you can honestly say, are we moving towards God or towards Satan? Because there is no middle ground. And there's only two directions, Satan or God. Take your pick. You're either for God or you're for Satan. You may not even know Satan's there. You may not know you're doing it for Satan, but are we following God or are we following Satan? Ain't no other way. This one is government's covert psychological tests target children. And there it is. Okay. Now, this is not in America. This is in Scotland. A new policy in Scotland that appoints a bureaucratic overseer for every child born with the power to overrule parental decisions will obtain information on the children and their families using covert psychological tests. The Scottish Mail newspaper reported Sunday that testing, and this is new, this is this week, testing will provide database information for the state guardian scheme. The paper said every young person in Scotland will be subtly quizzed about a private life and about their private life and asked to complete intrusive questionnaires. Among the questions will be whether or not the child's parents make him or her feel special and if the home is cozy. Simon Calvert of the Christian Institute, which is challenging the program in court, has said that authorities coaxing younger children to divulge information through the use of prompt cards, songs, and games designed to familiarize them with the Scottish government's teaching on well-being. So, on one hand, that sounds okay. They're trying to make life better for people in Scotland. But on the other hand, they're using their children to spy on their parents and people and indoctrinating the children by having, can this be any more Orwellian? Having a bureaucratic overseer for every child that's born, a big brother to watch what you're doing and, make sure you believe what the state wants you to believe, not what your parents want you to believe. And we have other articles about the state taking children from parents who want to take them to church, who want them to worship God. No, can't do that. That's you're being racist if you want to teach them about Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life, the only name under heaven that you may be saved by. That's elitist. That we can't have that. So anyway, that's the world we're in. And we're coming up on a break in a little bit. Let's see. Got another minute. Won't be enough, but I talk too much, I guess. But here's an article: student loans comprise 37% of U.S. assets. Government wins big when college kids take on debt. Well, not just the government, it's colleges. They jacked the price of college education up so high, people have to go into huge debt just to get an education. That's what I was saying. I talk too much. I need to just read the article. If I was an evil genius, I would be afraid of people that were educated because they could see through my phony baloney sham of an organization I've got going, and they could maybe outsmart me. So why don't we do like the Dark Ages did, and we'll hide all the books. And I've got another story about them hiding scientific papers so that scientists can't afford to look at what other scientists are doing. So it's slowing down science. But anyway, I would hide all the papers and the books like the Bible and all that stuff so people can't get an education. And then they won't challenge me with their intelligence. They'll just be stupid people wandering around, dumbing them down. So that's what I think. If I was an evil genius, that's what I would do. And I bet that's what's going on. Coming up on a break, this is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number this March the 8th, 2016 is 512-646-1984. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number 512-646-1984. So I'm going to read the whole article, but this article, I disagree with a little bit because it puts the blame almost completely on the government. But the colleges found out when it was, the only reason you needed a student loan when I went to school, I graduated in 82. Is that right? Yeah, 82 from the University of Texas, the Arlington campus. Big campus. It's not a little satellite thing. It was a big deal. It even had a dorm. But they had a big engineering college. They had nursing college. They had geophysical geology department, huge. And they built new buildings. They built a robotics center. After I graduated a couple of years later, they built a big robotics center in Fort Worth. It's not a minor thing. And I paid $10, $12 a semester hour, plus some other fees. And the books were like $30, $40. I thought that was outrageous. But they figured if everybody's getting loans, that they could just jack up the price. People just get more money for a loan. You may not afford it. It's kind of like insurance. You can't afford it without insurance. So I'll just charge so much. You have to have insurance, and then I make more money. So it's the same thing with that. They just jack the prices up because everybody was getting loans, and colleges invested in the loan companies, I found out. So, but it is true that this article I'm about to read says that now the private banks are only involved in the management of service of the loans. The loans originate with the government. I think they're guaranteed by the government. I don't know that they're originating, but anyway, this article is saying that because the government is guaranteeing these high, phony baloney loans, that the government's making money. The government can print money. I don't know why it needs to make them. But anyway, and that makes the politicization of the student debt and the promise of free college that's coming from Democratic camps a curious message. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders employ rhetoric on the issue of college loans as if there's some mysterious and pernicious third party taking advantage of students struggling to pay for college. This is Boulder Dash. The most direct way the federal government could affect college affordability is to simply tell universities and colleges that it will not issue loans above a certain amount of tuition. This would obviously horrify a major block of Democrat voters, but it would do far more to broaden accessibility to college. So that's true. If the government just says, we're not going to guarantee any loans if it's over this amount of money, and so you're going to lose money if they default on the loan because we're not going to guarantee it, well, then they would lower the prices. Okay, what else? This is stuff that's going on. This is a headline. This is from foreign newspapers, but it says, Allah Akbar, migrants storm through border fence. They say we will not accept turning the country into a permanent warehouse of souls. Muslim migrants along Macedonia's border shouted Allah Akbar as they used an improvised battering ram to force their way into the country from Greece. Roughly 7,000 migrants trapped inside the village of Idamani rioted on Monday. Street poles turned into battering rams helped hundreds storm the border. Authorities then used tear gas to push back rock-throwing men. Macedonia began closing off its border in January in an attempt to gain some semblance of control over Europe's migrant crisis. Many of the migrants are seeking asylum in Germany, which will accept more than 1 million in 2015, last year. Greece fears that it will, within days, have more than 70,000 new immigrants from the Middle East and North Africa. We will not accept turning the country into a permanent warehouse of souls, with Europe continuing to function as if nothing is happening. Of course, you won't read this in the newspaper. So anyway, that's just, they're beating down the doors to get into Europe. Why? Europe will become Muslim in the next 20 years. Their non-Muslim birth rate is so low that they are actually going to, in a generation or two, just wither away. But with a Muslim influx, Europe will become Muslim if it doesn't change. Next one, African men attack 60 Minutes crew during a migrant story. Cameraman beaten right across the chin by a group. A 60 Minutes crew from Australia was attacked by African masked men as it filmed footage for a story on Europe's refugee crisis. A cameraman and producer were confronted by the group in Stockholm, Sweden, who did not want anyone questioning migrants. The attackers ran over one man's foot, assaulted two others, and threw bottles. One cameraman was beaten right across the chin so that a tooth came loose. Sunderson, he was a guy from Sweden, wrote for the website, and I can pronounce that name, from the Sydney Morning Herald that reported this, Sydney, Australia. So I don't need to read the rest of that, but that's stuff you don't hear too often. You need to start reading German newspapers. I got a quote here from a German newspaper, Der Spiegel, whatever. They report a little bit more than they do over here. Over here, you think everything's just fine. You know, all these Hollywood actors are running around saying everything's great, we need more migrants, but they're absolutely ignoring. I wrote a report of the story about a woman who said that these rapes in Europe by migrants are fake, and she had to retract that when she's got out. But anyway, that's just what's going on. So, in another news, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, out of Atlanta, Georgia, set out a warning of healthy food outbreaks. I'm not making this up. You can't make this crap up. CDC warns of healthy food outbreaks, sprouts, salads, organic shakes, and meals and cucumbers. All the horror of it. Ironically, all of CDC's outbreak warnings on its homepage are currently for items on the so-called healthy food list. They don't want you to eat healthy. And on this, there's a picture here of fried bacon. There's a little sidebar over there. I want you to click on it. It's clickbait on this healthy food. So the Centers for Disease Control is warning of 5 potentially fatal multi-state outbreaks. Cucumbers don't have anything bad with them. It's the handling of the cucumber It's somebody, and I'll tell you what, anyway, we'll get to that. But alfalfa sprouts, packaged salads, all of that is touched by humans. That's where it comes from. It's extremely healthy otherwise. All you have to do is wash it off. Because it talks about 9 people in either Minnesota or Wisconsin who ate alfalfa sprouts have been diagnosed with an outbreak of toxin-producing, I don't know how to pronounce that, Escherichia coli, O157, which can cause some symptoms. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I can tell you where that comes from. Anyway, healthy food is healthy for you. You're not, so people are going to run and eat, McDonald's chicken nuggets because they say, oh, the healthy food's not healthy for you. Well, you'll die faster eating fried chicken nuggets and stuff like that. But where the problem comes from are the salads and the cucumbers, because they're not cooked. You eat them raw. The handlers, the people that pick them in the field, have to go to the bathroom, and there is no bathroom in the fields when they pick. And I got this from an article that I read in Alabama. Alabama passed some stringent anti-immigrant laws, and so the farmers had a hard time getting migrant Mexican workers to pick almost for free, paying them just pennies an hour to pick this stuff. And this farmer says, I get American workers, but they want a bathroom. So these migrant workers, they have to go to the bathroom just like Americans, and the farmer's not going to give them a bathroom. Where do you think they're going to go to the bathroom? And where are they going to have water to wash their hands after they go? So that's where that's salmonella outbreak. Nobody will say it, but that's what it is. I've read it. I put 2 and 2 together. Maybe I came up with 57, but it comes from workers that are paid so little and have such horrible working conditions that they don't even have sanitary conditions to go to the bathroom and do their business. So they have to do it. They're going to do it anyway. You can't hold it in. So that's where that outbreak comes from. And but we want our cheap food, our cheap cucumbers. So how you deal with that? You wash it off. You wash your food off. And this is, I'll tell you, I got a quote from German newspaper. Here's Der Spiegel Online. This is their English version of it. And this is from Kofi Annan, the United Nations head guy, whatever you call him. He said, lift the ban. Well, it's time to legalize drugs. And let's see how much time we've got. A couple of minutes. Drugs are dangerous, but current narcotics policies are an even bigger threat because punishment is given a greater priority than health and human rights. They talk about human rights. I don't want human rights. I want my God-given rights. It's time for regulations that put lives and safety first, argues former Secretary General Kofi Annan. And it goes on to say, but said globally the war on drugs has not succeeded. Well, that's true, and there's a reason for that. They want it to succeed because our politicians are making money off of the drug trade. We found that out from Mena, Arkansas, and Bill Clinton. In my experience, good public policy is best shaped by the dispassionate analysis of what in practice has worked or not. He says policy based on common assumptions and popular sentiments can become a recipe for mistaken prescriptions and misguided interventions. So let's legalize drugs. The war on drugs hasn't worked. He goes on to say that. So the West Africa Commission on Drugs, which is my foundation, convened. I wonder how much money he makes heading that foundation. Reported last year that the region was now become not only a major transit point between producers in Latin America and consumers in Europe, but an area where consumption is increasing. So everybody's taking drugs. Let's just make them legal. The legal sale of cannabis is as a reality. It started with California legalizing the sale of cannabis for medical use in 1996. Of course, Colorado's got it legalized. So let's just, everybody's taking it. Let's just make it legal. Which, I just thought it was, by the guy who's saying this is former Secretary General of the United Nations, so I thought it was kind of important. That's where some people are going with that, legalized drugs. And we don't have much time coming up on the break, so it's true that the war on drugs hasn't worked, and there's a reason for that, but if people want to take drugs, let them take it. So you want to commit suicide that way, we should talk you out of it. We should teach you that Christ, your body's a temple that way, and you don't want to deface it. But if you wanted to self-destruct, we can't stop you. All right, well, coming up on a break, this is Agenda 21 Talk. Call in number 512-646-1984. Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Hope everybody had a good break during the hour, long break. Didn't even realize it was the hour break. I've been talking so much. having a good time. I hope I'm having a good time. I hope you are too. Call in. We'd like to discuss any of the stories we talked about. I mentioned that the scientific papers are all bundled up. Just very briefly, a college gets grant money from the government, let's say, public money, to do a certain thing. And so they do it, and then some lead scientist, a professor, writes up this paper, and then the paper is published in a peer-reviewed journal. But that peer-reviewed journal takes the paper and keeps it, doesn't give it out for free, and they've gotten to where they charge such high prices that even colleges like Harvard can't afford their yearly subscription for all the information, so they had to pare it down. So scientists don't even have access to these papers. And somebody in Russia, a woman in Russia, they had formed an ad hoc network of scientists that shared papers. People that had subscriptions would get all these papers and then they'd put them on this third-party site. And now they're all over the internet. Almost hundreds of thousands of papers that were paywalled are now free. So anyway, that's been going on. So with that as a background, here's an article from theconversation.com. New defense trade controls threaten academic freedom and the economy. It's February 29th, 2016. This is out of Australia, but it's what happens in other countries is going to happen here, and what happens here happens in other countries. It spreads it around. There's these people, these ideas, these super self-anointed elite are doing this all over the world, a little here, a little there, and trying to get their new world agenda, one world government, under a one world leader in place. And to do that, certain things have to fall in place. You can't have intelligent people. You can't have educated people. You can't have super countries with super militaries that are not under their control. So here's what they did. A new round of trade controls will come into effect in Australia next month that could have far-reaching impact on the way academics do their work and may end up hurting the economy. The Defense Trade Controls Act goes into effect April the 2nd, 2016, and it applies to all Australians, including those now living overseas. But you $100 it doesn't, but it only applies to persons. But anyway, the DTCA brings in a new regime of Department of Defense oversight for both military goods, meaning new scientific ideas. Now that's a military good. New scientific ideas and means of application, and dual use goods, which are innovations that may have some military use. So you could do something that doesn't even have to do with the military, and they'll come in and take your books and papers and keep you from talking about it. You can't go online. You can't mention it to anybody because the military could use what you just discovered. This has severe implications for Australia's work on encryption, a key enabler for the rapidly growing internet economy. Less well appreciated is the 361 pages of the Defense Strategic Goods List, the DSGL. Defining the law's scope covers many other key innovation areas such as epidemiology, biotechnology, neural, optical, and quantum computers, high-performance computers, optical telecommunication, signal processing, fault-tolerant systems, image processing, and robotics. So why should you care? It says the DTCA introduces a permit regime for any intangible supply, especially electronic communications, of new ideas in DSGL areas. Researchers and innovators who communicate any new idea overseas without permission face 10 years in prison and $400,000 fine of Australian dollars. In other words, if you deal in new ideas in any of these areas and you do not apply for a DoD permit, you are putting yourself at serious risk. Remember, robotics, immunology, epidemiology, the study of diseases. If you don't get their permission, you can go to jail. If you go to a conference and talk about your findings, or if you publish a paper that gets overseas without their permission, that's just another way that they can clamp down or just restrict information so that you're dumbed down. So anyway, the ambiguity bedevils the legislation. The precise scope is literally impossible to pin down. Consider artificial intelligence. Since almost any AI can be used to improve robotic performance, artificial intelligence might be covered. However, AI is covered only if it is to enable this DSGL technology. So, for example, a deep learning algorithm might not be covered, but then suppose that the deep learning program were subsequently applied specifically to improve combat robot performance. Then the government could retrospectively deem your research leading to that control and some prior communication to be criminal acts. So anyway, they're doing that in Australia. They'll do it here. It's coming. Just, wait around a while. That's what Orwellian. I mean, can it get any more Orwellian? But it is. It's going to get worse and worse. Here's a nice article. I like this article. This is from the BBC. BBC News, British Broadcasting Corporation. Is your smartphone listening to you? This was March the 2nd. It all began with a car crash. I was doing some ironing when my mom, this is in Britain, my mom came in to tell me that a family friend had been killed in a road accident in Thailand. My phone was on the work stop behind me. But the next time I used the search engine on it, up popped the name of our friend and the words motorbike accident Thailand and the year in suggested text below the search box. I was startled, certain that I had not used my phone at the time. I had not had the conversation. My hands had been full. Had I started to look up the details up later and forgotten, or was my phone listening in? Almost every time I mentioned it to the people, they had a similar story, mainly based around advertising. One friend complained to her boyfriend about a migraine, her first ever, only to find the next day she was being followed on Twitter by a migraine support group. Another had an in-depth chat with her sister about a tax issue, and the next day she was served up a Facebook advertisement from tax experts offering advice on that exact issue. So it goes on, a couple more of those stories. Tech challenge. I challenged cybersecurity expert Ken Murno and his colleague. Let's hold on a second. Let me refresh this. Make sure we're not screwing up. Okay. Ken Murno and his colleagues, David Lodge from Pen Test Partners, to see whether it was physically possible for an app to snoop in this way. Could something listen in without being obvious? I wasn't convinced at first. It all seemed a bit anecdotal, admitted Mr. Murno. However, to our collective surprise, the answer was a resounding yes. They created a prototype app. We started chatting in the vicinity of the phone it was on and watched our words appear on a laptop screen nearby. All we did was use existing functionality on Google Android. We chose it because it was a little easier for us to develop in. We gave ourselves permission to use the microphone on the phone, set up a listening server on the internet, and everything that the microphone heard on that phone, wherever it was in the world, came to us, and we could then have sent back customized ads. The whole thing took only a couple of days to build. So yeah, we got these wonderful smartphones. You can't even buy a flip phone anymore. I like them better. Should have never gotten rid of it. But these smartphones and these apps are listening in on you. Now, Google denies it. I'll read down here a little bit. Google responds, and they say Google categorically does not use what it calls utterances. The background sounds before a person says, "Okay, Google," to activate the voice recognition. That's what they say. It also states its content policy for app developers is apps must not collect information without the user's knowledge. Whoop-dee-doo. Apps found to be breaking this are reserved or removed from the Google Play Store. Doesn't mean you can't get it. It's just anyway. So all you have to do is just do it surreptitiously. Don't tell anybody about it. Don't be a jerk about it, and you can continue with the app. And they talk about coincidence. There's also the possibility it was just coincidence. All these people had this stuff. It's just coincidence. Happen to have a smartphone. Happen to have something that they mentioned show up in their smartphone. Now, it could also say that that person who had the friend killed could have been a friend listed on Facebook and or LinkedIn or something. And when that friend died, the software could have taken the obituary or known about it, looked to see who his friends were, and sent them information. But the migraine one, I don't know how she would be served up, be followed by a migraine organization unless she searched for it. That was not, unless the person she talked to, it was like 24 hours later. So the person she talked to may have searched for migraines, and then their friend, they could have been friends on Facebook. The software could have found that out. This person searched for migraines. Who are all his friends, and served up everybody that, but didn't say that in the news article. So it's looking more and more like the phone's listening in on you. Apps are listening in on you. So they proved it's possible, and it's not only possible, it's plausible. Now, whether it did that or not, they couldn't say. But maybe it wasn't an app on the App Store. Maybe it was Google themselves taking this information, even though they said they don't. Just like VW probably said they weren't cheating before they caught cheating. Here's a story about Hollywood elites push Obama to import more Muslims. Rape crisis in Germany doesn't faze megastar, talking about George Clooney. He probably thinks all the rapes and the problems they're having in Europe from the migrants are fake, not real. Oh, man. But anyway, you guys can look that up. That's off of WND talking about that. George Clooney met with Merkel this week to discuss what Hollywood could do to help the refugee crisis. Why don't you supply security for the German people so they wouldn't be attacked? One of the latest cases involves 3 teenage girls who were sexually harassed by up to 30 male Muslim migrants at a German shopping mall last week. The incident began Tuesday at the Sophenhof Mall. And I've seen this in another story in a German paper that's a picture of that mall in the city of Kiel when 2 young men of Afghan origin began to follow 3 teenage girls aged 15, 16, and 17. The men began filming the girls on their smartphones and uploading the images to social media, after which gangs of migrants appeared on the scene chasing the girls, according to a report in a German media outlet. The Afghans and 2 other people resisted police and were taken into custody, but the rest of them eluded the police and have not been found. In another case reported February 29th, 2 teenage girls were sexually assaulted by Afghan migrants at a German water park. All right, coming up on a break, this is Agenda 21 Talk. Call in number. We'd love to hear from you if you have comments about any of these stories I've read or comments we made on the Bible. 512-646-1984.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
You know, that commercial during the break was Michael Maris. I didn't mention that. Go to logosradionetwork.com. Not only is there a chip-in button to help sponsor this network, if you like the truth we put on, not just this show, but the other shows too. So many good ones. But there's you can, if you get that Eddie Craig traffic seminar, which is a great seminar. It's good stuff. I've seen it. It's great. He does a lot of work for you. But you get like 10 free tickets, I think, for the drawing of this gun. They have a prize you can enter when you donate. You can enter a prize to get a pistol, a gun, and you get extra tickets if you get the traffic seminar, which is well worth it. I mean, that stuff's gold. Good stuff. So go to logosradionetwork.com, and the Michael Maris stuff is on there, and it's good stuff too. A lot of good stuff on that website. So check it out. All right. Well, more about this stuff in Germany. Here's another one. This is the Daily Caller website, dailycaller.com. Climate scientists, there's 2 things here. There's a climate scientist asking Obama to prosecute people who don't believe in climate change, like that's against the law. But this guy who has been asking Obama to prosecute skeptics has made millions off of double dipping. The main climate scientist behind a letter asking Obama to prosecute those who question global warming. Anyway, that's not so skeptic. There are people, the Earth's changing. I'm skeptical that it's carbon dioxide causing anything, and it's actually warming. The Earth's changing and the environment's changing, but warming doesn't seem to be. Anyway, this guy who wrote this letter wanting Obama to prosecute those who question global warming may have been cheating taxpayers illegally by double dipping. He was paying himself and his wife millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, while running a taxpayer-funded research group while collecting a paycheck from his state-funded academic job. Since 2001, as president of IGES, Dr. Shukla appeared to have paid himself and his wife a total of $5.6 million, an excessive amount for a nonprofit relying on taxpayer money. And this is from Texas Republican Lamar Smith, who sent the Inspector General this notice to the Inspector General of the National Science Foundation. The public expects nonprofit organizations that receive taxpayer money to exercise responsible stewardship of the tax dollars. Yeah, just like Congress does. In this case, it appears that grants provided to IGES did not serve the intended purpose of providing services to the public. Instead, taxpayers picked up the tab for excessive double-dipping salaries, nepotism, and questionable money transfers. Climate Scientologist Jagdish Shukla of George Mason University, who also ran the Institute of Global Environment and Society, IGES, made headlines last summer when he sent a letter to Obama asking them to prosecute global warming skeptics with an anti-mafia law, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO. That is crazy. This is crazy. This is insane. Now, he obviously doesn't care about the environment. He has figured out how to make money off of this, just like Gore did. And that is you stir up fear, and you put yourself head of these organizations, and you rake in millions of dollars. There's big money in fear. The letter sparked huge pushback from skeptic bloggers who began looking into Shukla's organization and found that he was collecting millions from taxpayers while calling for those who disagree with him to be investigated by the Department of Justice. Pretty sweet, isn't it? They figured it out. He and Gore there. I got to give credit to Gore. Guy's a genius. Makes money off of fear and, just stuff that's not there. Hot air. Just literally hot air. Just make money out of nothing. Gore didn't provide anything. This guy didn't provide anything. He didn't make anything. He didn't do any research. He just made millions of dollars just running around saying global warming. House Science Committee Republicans took notice and began to investigate Shukla's getting rich off taxpayer grants. Now, Lamar Smith says the committee has evidence Shukla has diverted taxpayer funds to another nonprofit he founded and was breaking Virginia state law by double dipping. So anyway, are we getting better or worse? Is people like him actually helping their sweet global warming cause, or are they making it worse? Are things getting better, or are they getting worse? Oh, man. Okay, what else? This is from, never heard of this place, Vice.com. I'm sorry, news.vice.com. And Seattle area salmon are loaded with antidepressants and other drugs thanks to human waste. This is from February the 24th, 2016. The everyday chemicals that humans ingest to relieve pain, fight depression and diabetes, or treat infection are winding up in the tissue of fish in Washington's Puget Sound. Now, that's all they looked for. No telling what else. Everything. I mean, birth control, everything ends up in the water. The fish drink the water and live in the water, and it ends up in the fish. The culprit, according to the study, is human waste. About 45 of 150 chemicals we examined were found in the fish, said James Meador, the lead author of the study of an aquatic toxicologist working with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Some of them were at high concentrations. That's kind of an information that raises eyebrows. Now, they didn't look at, I don't know when this was done, and it may have been done several years ago before Fukushima. They didn't do anything about radiation, just those chemicals. But, the poor fish now have the chemicals and the radiation telling what's going to go on. Over 4,000 pharmaceuticals are currently in use or in development in the United States. Many of them are finding their ways into rivers, streams, and lakes, raising concerns about how exposure could impact wildlife, even humans who consume fish. And this article is just about the fish, but you got to know, they do have studies. It's in your drinking water. It's in tap water. All those chemicals, birth control, and just everything is in the Prozac and all that stuff is in the tap water because it goes into your city's water, goes into your waste, it goes into a river, and the cities downstream get that water. They treat it for bacteria with chemicals, but they don't take out the other chemicals. Only reverse osmosis, or even better, if you could distill it, would get it out. But anyway, this goes on and on. It's so sad. 106 wastewater treatment plants discharging as much as 97,000 pounds of chemicals each year are located around Puget Sound. Meador's team examined only 2 of them, but found ingredients from 81 drugs and personal care products at some of the highest concentrations in the country. Hundreds of chemicals can be found in the waters of Puget Sound, but only a handful are regularly monitored by wastewater facilities, which require permits from Washington's Department of Ecology to operate. Chemical levels from pesticides, for example, must remain below a certain threshold before the water can be dumped into the Sound. But pharmaceuticals, now ubiquitous in society, aren't monitored at all. There's a lot of chemicals that we already know cause problems for the salmon. And, of course, people eat salmon, don't they? Bears eat salmon. It gets everywhere. You can't stop it. Once it gets in the wild like that, it just disseminates out. While the presence of toxins sounds alarm bells for advocates like Apfel, more research is needed to understand the impact of chemicals on aquatic life, says Meador. And that's true, but you got to know it's harmful. It doesn't do them any good. It's one of the many reasons that the fish are dying off. There's big fish die-offs and things in Washington. Fukushima, it's the chemicals in the water. We're chunking up this earth pretty bad. And God said he will destroy those who destroy the earth. So there's some amazing things going on that you just don't know about it. Chinook salmon migrate from the ocean to the river headwaters in order to spawn. Meador and his team studied the fish because they spend several weeks each year swimming in areas of high chemical concentration. just a few weeks and they get these concentrations. Previous studies, Metter found that the salmon that migrate through chemical-laden wastewater die at nearly twice the rate of fish in cleaner waters. So coming up on a break, this is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number if that bothers you or you think it's good. Call in 512-646-1984. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any topics you want us to cover or format change of the show you would like, just give us a call, 512-646-1984.
Do you have a chocolate monster inside? You know, the one that forces you to eat a chocolate bar even though it's not on your diet? I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back in a moment with a tip to tame temptation that really works.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
There's nothing quite like melt-in-your-mouth chocolate, but it can sure sabotage a healthy diet. When I get a hankering, I just recall the U.S. Food and Drug Administration guidelines for adulteration and filth in chocolate. You might think the agency would forbid filth and contamination, but they don't. They just set limits. For example, the FDA allows an average of 59 insect fragments and 1 rat hair in 100 grams of chocolate. To put that in perspective, 100 grams is about the weight of a 3.5-ounce sampler box with 8 chocolate candies. Yuck. Just think wings, legs, and hair the next time you're dieting. It works like a charm. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back from the break. This is Agenda 21 Talk. I'm Don, and let's get on to it. There's a few more. Plow through some of these more stuff that's going on. You probably didn't know this. I've reported it on the show before, but hardly any networks really reported what's going on. This is the from Inhabitat.com. The damage report reveals LA methane leak is one of the worst disasters in U.S. history. And it hardly got any. I don't watch the evening news, so they might have had an article about it, but printed articles or the stuff on the internet, the mainstream stuff doesn't report it. A week after the ruptured natural gas well in Aliso Canyon was finally declared sealed, we have a full accounting of the environmental damage, and it doesn't look good. A new paper published in the Journal of Science declared it to be one of the largest environmental disasters in U.S. history. In total, 97,100 metric tons of methane were released into the atmosphere over the course of 112 days, equal to the greenhouse gas emissions of over 500,000 cars. The study drew its measurements from a series of research aircraft flights carried out between November 7th and about 2 weeks after the leak was first reported, and February the 13th, 2 days after the leak was plugged. Scientific aviation experts Stephen Cornley of the University of California, Davis was asked by the California Energy Commission to conduct the first flyover early on before anyone realized just how serious the gas leak was. Anyway, it goes on to say it was really bad, horrible, stupid, bad. It was 50 times, just about. It was typically about 2 parts per million, but the aircraft registered concentrations as high as 60 parts per million. It wasn't until the researchers tested levels on the ground using different instruments that they realized the frightening readings were accurate. It was bad, really bad. People got sick. They denied it. Oh, man, but it was bad. But anyway, if you go to Inhabitat.com and look that up, Habitat, INHABITAT.com, they have graphs that they've from the instruments, so that just around streets, around the perimeter, but they even measured high methane miles in the city where the people were, not just in the canyon. So anyway, it was bad, really bad. 25% of the global warming in the world is experiencing came from that. Is that what it said? Let's just read that. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas that traps heat much more efficiently than carbon dioxide. The only thing is methane takes up, carbon dioxide is only 0.5%. Methane is not even 0.1%. So anyway, it's weird. It would only be a greenhouse gas if it made up 50% of the atmosphere or even more, and if we had a far denser atmosphere. But anyway, the Aliso Canyon leak has been described as the worst fossil fuel disaster since the 2010 Deepwater Horizon spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Until it stopped, the gas leaking from the facility is responsible for about 25% of California's daily greenhouse gas emissions, 1/4. And it says methane is responsible for 25% of the global warming the world is experiencing, except technically the temperature's gone down or has remained the same for the past 15 years. But anyway, that's bad. That's bad news, bad stuff. The takeaway that I've got is that the news media really didn't report on it very much. They reported on the deep water thing because you could see the oil rushing up on shore. That was a big deal. But this methane leak, they just gave it a pass, it seems like. They didn't completely ignore it, but it just wasn't such a big deal to them. Here's one from popecenter.org. From the Pope Center, John William Pope Center for Higher Education Policy, the 10 worst colleges for free speech. And it came from the FIRE, a group called FIRE, which is the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, released a top 10 list. And top honors went to Mount St. Mary's University in Maryland, recently thrown into turmoil by President Simon Newton's firing of 2 faculty members who criticized his idea that the school should reduce its freshman class by drowning some of the bunnies, i.e. culling out academically weak students. So he fired 2 people who disagreed with him. Whether the president's concept was good or bad, firing people for criticizing it is the worst way an educational leader can react. Second spot went to Northwestern University, where administrators put 2 prominent faculty members through ordeals because of inappropriate writings. Especially revealing was the treatment of Professor Laura Kipnis after students complained that an essay she had written made them feel uncomfortable. College students should learn to make counter arguments when they disagree with someone, but Northwestern encourages them to file official complaints just because they feel uncomfortable. We're raising a bunch of sissies, a bunch of babies who can't make an argument, so they just run to the mama and say, make them stop. That's all. It's just crazy. So that's the only reason I'm reading this. It's just a sign of the times. It's how crazy we're getting, how insane we're getting. Louisiana State earned 3rd place for firing a tenured education professor who had been on the faculty for 20 years. Her offense was occasional use of profanity, which university officials elevated to the status of sexual harassment. Ever since the Department of Education launched its crusade against conduct even vaguely suggesting sexual harassment, everyone has to fear that a slip of the tongue or a poor choice of words will lead to severe trouble. Oh, this goes on to say just a bunch of other dopey stuff that they're firing people or getting them in trouble or doing stuff for things that were permissible before, but now they're not. And it's just weird. That's just a sign of the times. Can't even read today. Student punished for refusing to recite Islamic profession of faith. Maryland high school punished a student for refusing to profess faith in Islam, gave her a failing grade for a series of assignments that violated her Christian beliefs, then threatened her father with arrest for complaining. A federal lawsuit charges. A suit was filed in U.S. District Court against the Charles County Public Schools in La Plata, Maryland. Spokesman for the district told WND that officials were aware of the issue, but said Arnold and Morris would not be commenting. Plaintiffs are Marine Corps veteran John Kevin Wood and his wife Melissa, who refused to allow their teenage daughter to be subjected to Islamic indoctrination and propaganda in her high school world history class. The lawsuit charges that the defendant's curriculum, practices, policies, actions, and procedures and customs promote the Islamic faith by requiring students to profess the 5 pillars of Islam. I've mentioned this before. There are 7 pillars of Islam. Do you know what 2 they leave off? Immigrate and jihad. That's the 2 they leave off. The lawsuit charges that the school officials concealed the curriculum by using 2 separate history textbooks, one which contained the Islamic teachings and which students were required to leave at the school. The other, which did not contain the teachings, was allowed to be taken home. The school also exercised the Islamic teachings from the course syllabus. Defendants have treated plaintiffs' Christian beliefs and heritage with deliberate indifference and have been hostile toward the student and her family. So, just another, I'm not putting all these together. I'm reading some here and some there, but you get the idea. This is going on. It's only going to get worse. Only going to get worse. This is just a building block. It's just a building block they're using to build this new society that they want. The new society can't have anything to do with Christianity. Any other religion is fine. Don't want Jesus. Can't have Jesus. Not going to have Jesus. And in order to control people, you got to get them to fear an outside force, and you have to be their hero by saving them from that outside force. So you rub two things up together, the Hegelian principle. You take Islam and you rub it up against Christianity, and you do so in such a way that there's a big old conflict, and then you step right in and you separate the two and say, well, I'm going to make peace. We'll make you both sit down together, and we'll just have a big old peace party, and there'll be peace in our time. And that's what's going to happen. And I don't predict it, the Bible did. Call-in number, last segment of the show, 512-646-1984. Call in with your comments or questions. I'd love to hear from you. And anyway, 512-646-1984.
Seems like yesterday, it was long ago.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Call-in number on this March the 8th, 2016, last segment of the show. So, you're going to make a comment or a question or take me to task for something I said, correct me, criticize it, call in 512-646-1984. Some other amazing things. I'm just going to mention this. I'm going to read the whole article. This says the basic income is dead. And this is off of embraceunity.com. That sounds like something. But anyway, they're talking about it's a big deal now to give everybody a basic income. They're trying it in some countries. I can't remember now what country. Some country in Europe is going to try it. Norway maybe is going to try it. Everybody gets a basic income. So you don't have to work. You can just watch TV all day and you'll get some income coming in. So I just put that up. You ought to read it. Called The Basic Income is Dead on embraceunity.com, which sounds like a liberal thing. But anyway, it's just interesting stuff. I encourage people to read it. In dealing with it, no, okay. Here's another one. While I'm mentioning stuff I'm not going to read, but I want you to look up. Here's one from a website called go.clarionproject.org. CLARION project.org. Numbers, full film. It's from the Clarion Project. It's called By the Numbers, The Untold Story of Muslim Opinions and Demographics. Strongly encourage everyone to read that. It's by a Muslim. It's not anti-Muslim at all. It's by a Muslim, but it's talking about the effect of Muslims and who are really the terrorists and whatever. But it's really nice. And this woman that's doing this, Raheel Raza, she actually she's Muslim. She loves her faith. She makes some statements that aren't in the Quran, aren't supported by the Quran, but that's okay. But I encourage everybody to see it. It's free. It's a little 5 or 10 minute movie show talking about what Muslims think and how. Anyway, it's just important. It's just good. So go to go.clarionproject.org, and this is By the Numbers: The Untold Story of Muslim Opinions and Demographics. And I think Anyway, I had that bookmarked. If I didn't lose it, I'll leave it. Anyway, I'll need to bookmark it. I think I deleted the bookmark, but it doesn't matter. Speaking of climate change, this is from Ars Technica, which is not a right-wing publication. It's certainly not Climate Denier magazine. It's about technology and stuff. But the headline is, we got a caller, but the headline is, though not thoroughly fabricated, the truth about global temperature data. How thermometer and satellite data is adjusted and why it must be done. Now, that's supporting it, but however, they're admitting in their support that they actually changed the data. So Andy is on the line, so let's just go to Andy. Hi, Andy. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. I was curious, do you have any plans to have Brother Jefferson on the air anytime soon? Because that guy is awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to have him back on. He is awesome. I'll send him an email. I contacted him a couple of months ago, and he was busy. So I'll send him another email and see if he can be back on. I'm glad you like him. I like him, too.
Does he have any YouTube videos or anything like that out there, or is it just the little bit that you've actually put him on the air where we can hear him? Because he makes a lot of sense. I mean, he really is well read and well thought. He has a good point.
Yeah, he graduated from a seminary in Huntsville, So he's got a college degree in theology. He is well known. I don't know. I'll have to ask him. I don't think he does. He's got a regular job, and he just does this and talks on churches on the side. Don't think he does. I have seen him quoted at length in a video on Amazing Discoveries, and the video was from someone else, but they quoted him about what he had to go through in seminary to get to graduate. Some of the New Age stuff they made him learn, and supposedly wanted to go. But I'll ask him. I'll try to get him back on the show, and I'll ask him if he's got a website.
Certainly, that'd be great. Yeah, it's ridiculous. They've got clergy coming out of Harvard. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, yeah. But anyhow, yeah, that guy's entertaining, and he's I think you guys do a great job together. Get him back on, and I'll look forward to hearing about it. All right.
All right. Hey, thanks for the suggestion. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
All right. Keep up the good work, man.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Good night. All right.
Good night. God bless. All right. Cool. I like that. I'll send them an email tonight after the show. All right. Yeah, he was busy earlier, and I forget about it. So anyway, how much time we got left? 6 minutes. All right. This is the sign. So anyway, so that's the headline, though it's not thoroughly fabricated. So they're saying we didn't really fabricate the data thoroughly. We just kind of fabricated it a little bit. The truth about global temperature data and why we must change it, why it had to be adjusted. Here's the quote. In June, NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association employees altered temperature data to get politically correct results. At least that's what Congressman Lamar Smith, we just quoted him before in another article, alleged in a Washington Post letter to the editor last November. The op-ed piece was part of Smith's months-long campaign against NOAA climate scientists. Specifically, Smith was unhappy after an update to NOAA's global surface temperature data set slightly increased the short-term warming trend since 1998. Now, I've quoted that before. I've been on this show. I've read blogs by these climatologists that changed it. People think I'm crazy. Well, I don't know about crazy. They think I'm crazy anyway. But people thought I was wrong, that they made up these numbers and they changed it. No, they not only they admit it, and I learned it from looking at a blog that said this is why we did it. But anyway, Smith, who, I won't read the whole article, but Smith is not an engineer or scientist. But the point is, and I've said before, and I'll say it again, I'll repeat myself, you can do anything you want with the data. You can manipulate it. You can do Fourier analysis. You can do all kinds of manipulation on the data as long as you tell what you did. You can run it through filters. You can do anything you want to it and get whatever result you want. As long as whatever manipulation you did, you tell in your paper, you tell what you did and why you did it. And that's actually another article I've been reading, another scientific brouhaha, is that they're misusing the P number, the probability number on experiments. They're saying we got 95% positive results. No, you didn't, because you didn't include, and statisticians are saying this, you didn't include what you did to get that number. So your results are invalid because we can't check it. It's the same thing with this NOAA results. You can do anything you want with the data, and you can say we got this climate change, and here's the graph, but the actual data shows it's not climbing, but we manipulated. We did this stuff to the numbers because of this reason. But the one thing you do not do, scientists you cannot do this, is change the data. You can't go back on your spreadsheet of raw data that you took, and you can't adjust it, tweak it. You can't do anything with it. You got to save that as the gold standard. You can manipulate it. You can do all kinds of analysis. You can run artificial intelligence software algorithms on it. You can do whatever as long as you document what you did, but you cannot just change the raw data. And guess what the climate scientists did? They changed the raw data. They took the data that's been collected for 100 years of thermometers all around the United States and the world, and they manipulated the data, and that's what they did. And now I don't even know if you can get the raw data anymore. As far as I know, you can't get it anymore. You can only get what they've manipulated. I don't know that that's true, but I don't know it's not true either. So anyway, that's the climate change stuff. If you think the climate's changing, probably isn't. But the world is changing. There's going to be a lot more earthquakes and doing some weird things, and El Niños and what's the opposite? But El Niño is El Niña. At the same time, the weird stuff's going to happen. It's going to happen, as I said earlier, next year. I got a story here about the Pope to commemorate Protestant Reformation, working towards reconciliation between Lutherans and Catholics. This was January the 25th. So next year, the Protestant Reformation in 2017 will be the end of the Catholic Church says that's the end of the Protestant Reformation. The Lutherans have come back. They're not Lutheran anymore. They're now the Catholic. The Methodists have signed the document. The Baptists, I believe, will sign it before 2017. Not sure about that. Maybe afterwards. But, next year will be all the world's religions start to become one big time. They've been doing it for years, for 15 years. But the past few years, it's just gone up exponentially. So I would think the climate change is going to happen after that. Now, there may be a grace period again. Like I mentioned, the 70 weeks was over in Daniel, and it took another 30 years before Jerusalem was destroyed. So there's a grace period. There's a small period there. So it may not be directly after 2017, but there's going to be a lot of earthquakes, a lot of weird weather stuff. A lot of stuff's going on because of our sins after these religions start to become one, or officially become one. Well, that's our show for the night. I'm glad Andy called in. I appreciate everybody that listens and didn't call in. I know we get a lot of listeners on delayed broadcasts and podcasts. So thank you for listening. That's our show. Our email is agenda21talk@yahoo.com. Email me, send any document I've got to you, code enforcement, whatever. I hope everybody has a good, safe, blessed week. Study your Bible, study the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation. They go hand in hand, so to know where you are. So visit your church this week, and we'll talk to you next week.